Good to see you, Daniel Jeremiah. What's up, bud?
How you doing, man?
How are you doing?
I'll tell you what, it's just trying to build the energy for this draft, and to walk in just a minute ago and to hear you guys talking about the Stanford punter, I felt the Jake Bailey energy in the crowd. It was just like taking off.
He's moving up draft boards.
There you go.
But the reason why I ask you how you're doing is, did you ever see the movie The Sting? You ever see The Sting?
In a film class in college.
Well, anyway, there's a scene in The Sting where it's the day of the big sting.
Okay.
And Paul Newman is in the spot where they're going to have the sting. And the guy that he has hired to protect the Robert Redford character walks in, and he thinks that the guy who's there to protect the Robert Redford character is going to tell him some bad news.
Yeah.
And then Robert Redford walks in the door, and he exhales. That's the way I felt about Mike Mayock every single year during the draft. How you doing, Mike? You doing all right? So now I ask you, you feeling good? You're good? I can exhale.
There you go.
Well, it's good to see you, man.
It's good to see you.
I'm excited.
It's gonna be fun,
I'm excited to have you in that spot. I mean, you've done it for so many years, and then tonight, the first few minutes of the draft. I mean, last year when we were sitting there in Dallas together, it was going to be: is it Darnold? Is it Mayfield? Could it possibly be Saquon Barkley? Nobody really thought that was entirely possible, but Mayfield or Darnold. Tonight, it's totally wide open after months of it being Murray. Are you hearing? What are you hearing right now, DJ?
I try to divorce myself from whatever you hear in the last 48 hours of the process and go with what
because
you had.
It's all smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff. But look, it's not done. If it's not done and Josh Rosen has not been traded, then there's intrigue and mystery. I still feel like Kyler Murray will be the pick because it's all pointed in that direction, and I think it's a peculiar handling of Josh Rosen if they aren't going to take Kyler Murray.
Right.
But it's not done. So there's still that potential. It could be Quinnen Williams. It could be Bosa. And then even after that, the 49ers have talked about potentially trading out. Everybody, and the Jets have called. They probably called a couple people in here.
Is that right?
About
Has anybody received a call from the Jets here inside the Marriott? Yes, this gentleman in the Colts hat says that, but I don't believe him for a split
It's a long
second.
way to go.
It's smoke and mirrors. That was a smoke and mirrors thing right here by this gentleman from the AFC South. So I'm also hearing that the Cardinals have not had a conversation about trading Josh Rosen with somebody in a very long time also. Yeah. So unless Steve Keim struck a deal with somebody 3 weeks ago and it's in his right or left-hand drawer that he's going to be able to pull out the minute they hand in the Murray name tonight,
for it to be
totally mystified.
You know how hard it is to keep a secret in the NFL.
Yes.
So if you already had a deal worked out, you've got to have silence on the Arizona side, which can be difficult, but even more difficult would be silence on the team that's going to acquire him.
Right.
That gets out. If that's done, I would think that would have leaked out. But I've heard nothing.
But they have to trade Rosen hand in hand of doing it, right? I mean, you've got to extract the draft picks now for tonight, because the minute that the draft closes tonight, or even gets passed through 15, you can't trade Rosen you trade him for pennies on the dollar if everyone know you have to get rid of him.
It's musical chairs, and the seats are going to fill up tonight. So your leverage is going out the window. Now, I kind of laughed because they've got it out there in a big way. We're not going to give away Josh Rosen. We're going to keep him. That's what we're going to do. We're going to go forward with him and Kyler Murray in the same room. That's going to be a great way for Kyler Murray to enter into the NFL. There is no chance. That's, to me, is their way of trying to generate leverage where they might not have that much.
Well, yesterday when we had Steve Mariucci on, when I asked him, is it at all possible that Rosen and Murray could be
I can't see that.
He called that gasoline and matches. With the three words that he called it.
Not going to end well.
He says that's gasoline and matches.
It's hard enough when you have a veteran at the end of the line and you bring in the young guy. Now you've got a second-year player with somebody coming up with the number one pick in the draft. There's no way. That can't work.
See, and then, for me, we're going to play this on our pre-show on the NFL Network tonight, our pre-draft show. Mayock last year, when, again, we're all sitting there, me, you, him, and David Shaw in Dallas, and the Browns are put on the clock, and Mayock, I said, well, what do you think? And he goes, well, you're John Dorsey, you're a new general manager. And he had like a soliloquy of about 30 seconds about how this is an important pick to let the building know who you are as a general manager and who you view is the prototypical fill-in-the-blank of the player of the team that you're on.
Yeah.
So tonight, obviously, the Dorsey relationship with Hugh Jackson is totally different from the one of Mayock and Gruden.
True.
But tonight, hearing the name of, say, Devin White, right, a thumper right in the middle of the defense, or some pass rusher who's got a nasty streak in him. That strikes me of what not only the Raiders need, but fills what Mayock has already verbalized what in his mind a general manager needs to do with his first pick. I wonder what you think.
Well, I talked to him yesterday, and I start spitting back the words from his press conferences. He's like, oh, you picked that up. I said, yeah, I've been studying, Mike. I've been listening to what you said. In the first press conference, he used the phrase foundational players. This is kind of a culture-building draft for them, much like he talked about last year with John Dorsey. And I describe it as a middle-of-the-fairway draft. This is not a driver draft. This is just get good, solid players, park that thing in the fairway, and these guys are going to be core members of your team going forward. They have multiple picks next year, too. So there might be different players. They can get a little bit sexier. But for this first one, to me, it's right in the middle of the fairway. And I could see even – people say who could be an out-of-left-field pick at number 4. And Haskins, I think, is possible. I think that's very much in play. But even somebody like Devin Bush, where people would say, maybe it's a little bit high, but that is in the dead middle of the fairway. You know exactly what you're getting.
Well, look, if Mayock, after us hanging out for 15 years in the draft and the amount of grief that he would give me anytime a Wolverine was either selected
for him to go
passed
there.
over, for him to go Wolverine as his first pick as a general manager, making him a top 5, which I don't know. I can't remember. I think Jake Long was the last Michigan player that was a top 5 player in the draft, right? You're nodding your head, Brockman, correct?
I believe so,
So
yes.
if Mayock makes that stat, I will blow his phone up. Like, he would just stop texting me. He might actually erase me or block me from his phone.
Here's the thing,
That's what will happen during the coverage tonight.
He could go Michigan man in the first round. He could go Jalen Moore, App State running back in the 4th. And for Charles, unfortunately, there are no Tennessee players that are draftable.
You got to be careful in this time.
I know.
Okay?
I see some orange out here.
I know. That's usually your go-to thing is to rag on Charles.
I might get some fruit. I might get fruit thrown at me if I make fun of Tennessee down here.
Here on this draft, and that's what the neat thing too is, Chris Collinsworth tweeted out today that his hot take. Did you see this from Collinsworth on Twitter today? His hot take for the draft. His hot, flat-out prediction for the draft is that Roger Goodell's going to get a standing ovation here because things are different in the South, is what he said.
Let me tell you what's not happening. Roger Goodell getting cheered tonight.
I don't know. I mean, I asked the people. There's some Tennessee people who are shaking. Well, there's a Dallas guy who's shaking his head no right now. Sir, what he did with Ezekiel Elliott, just put that aside. Just don't worry about that, okay? So what do you think tonight is going to bring? We'll be talking about what? Like when you and I are done tonight with David Shaw and, again, our third-hour guest, Kurt Warner, what do you think we will be discussing after our broadcast tonight, Daniel?
I think we're going to look at the intrigue inside the NFC West. This was a doormat division for a while.
Yep.
And now when you look at it, Seattle's got 2 picks. So pressure on them to find somebody to fill the role with Frank Clark leaving. Mm-hmm. They've got 2 first-rounders. You look at the top of the draft, they go 1 and 2.
Yes.
So not only, that's to me the interesting discussion about Kyler Murray. You not only take Kyler Murray, 1 quarterbacks back-to-back years, in my opinion, you gift wrap the best defensive player in the draft to a team inside your division who's going to be playing against Kyler Murray.
Interesting.
So you've got that intrigue and that connection there inside that division. And then you've got the team that was in the Super Bowl.
The defending NFC champs.
Picking at the bottom of the first round, who's got a little bit of age in the offensive line. And do they want to take one there? Or do they try and trade back? I think it's a fascinating division.
What was that number I asked you during our combine coverage?
21.
You say there will be 21 I asked you during our combine coverage, how many defensive players are going to be chosen in the first round of the draft? Because they were just jumping out of the gym and running like speed burners at ridiculous weights. And you said 21. Do you feel like that will be the case now?
That would be. I think the record's 19, so that would be big-time news if that does happen.
But now here we are on the draft day.
When you start getting to it, here's the thing that would challenge that. I think you make a case 21 of the top 32 players in the draft are defensive players.
Right.
We have so many young quarterbacks in the NFL right now with average to below average offensive lines, which is going to elevate those linemen up. And we could see a little bit of a run on the offensive line. Those guys maybe even going where they're evaluated because, look, if you've got Deshaun Watson and you're sitting there in the 20s and the top tackles are gone, which I think will take place, you almost have to reach for an offensive lineman. He cannot get hit like that another year. You have to invest in the offensive line.
I mean, they have to. The Texans have to go.
And I hear corner, they need corners. I'm like, that's great. You have to protect Deshaun Watson, number 1. That's it.
But I got to tell you, it's funny. It's almost like an AFC South ritual. It was the Colts for so many years, and now the Texans, where we're sitting on a draft set saying they've got to take an offensive lineman. They have to take an offensive lineman, and then they don't. until the Colts finally did last year with this future Hall of Famer from Notre Dame, Big Q.
Fun.
He's nasty. So, but you have to understand the importance of what it is. I mean, Andrew Luck was like Santiago from A Few Good Men. He was not to be touched. He was and he was hardly touched last year.
Yeah.
So that's and it starts with stuff that you see tonight.
I hadn't packed a thing.
And he hadn't packed a single thing.
There's no way Mayock gets that, by the way. Zero chance.
By the way, that's another reason why I'm excited for you for tonight. Like, it was either Stripes or the Sugar Hill Gang or nothing else. He didn't understand anything else.
Actual references tonight.
Actual pop culture
Who's
references.
going to do it? You, Lieutenant Weinberg? We can go there.
By the way, did you see my Instagram post today?
No, I haven't seen it.
Okay, I'll show it to you right here. It is the second we went off the air, me, you, Charles, and Mike Mayock, after Mike said he was a Beavers guy, and we threw to the Bears pick, and they chose Deion Bush. That's you wiping your eyes with a tissue because you are crying, and Mayock was crying. Like, we were laughing so hard we had to throw to break. I'm like, just let's get us to the commercial break.
Look, night one is the energy, and it's great, but we're going to have a blast on day 3.
Yeah, that's when Peter Schrager joins me, you, and Charles on the Tootsie set on Broadway. I mean, the setting here is just truly unbelievable.
It's a great city.
It really is, and we're excited not only to be here in the courtyard with you and David Shaw earlier on. Kurt Warner's joining us later on. I don't know if you saw. Tim McGraw retweeted our promo that he's going to be here at the downtown Nashville courtyard.
How about that?
So Tim McGraw is making his way here. We're going to talk Friday Night Lights with him, correct?
Have to.
And especially since he just tweeted out a photograph talking about, hey, welcome to draft day here in Nashville. And it looks like him as a high school football player. Look at an old picture. You got to take a look at it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Ask him something for me off the air real quick. Because I went to Northeast Louisiana before I transferred to App State, and I think Tim McGraw went to Northeast Louisiana University.
I will definitely do that. Write that down for me, Chris, will you?
Got it.
All right, so we're here. Hour number 1 is in the books from the Courtyard by Marriott downtown in Nashville. Please join us here if you're here in person, because Tim McGraw is coming up, hour 2.
For more of The Rich Eisen Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV for free on BR Live, or download the Rich Eisen Show app.